Welcome to Jamaica Magazine. After this week, Jamaica's tourism product is expected to reach higher levels as over 157 tourism ministers from across the world will be gathering at the Montego Bay Convention Center. Jamaica is set to host the UNWTO conference starting tomorrow. Themes such as community tourism and successful models of destination management will be discussed. Before those tourism leaders get to talking, our sector minister is back on issues and answers to remind us all why this is good news for all Jamaicans. I'm Adrian Atkinson. Stay tuned as the magazine dives into that and so much more right after this. The UNWTO conference starts tomorrow, November 27. Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett is next on Issues and Answers, telling you all about the conference.
Thanks for joining us for Issues and Answers. I'm Ian Boyne. Jamaica later this month hosts the United Nations World Tourism Organization's Global Conference. And here to talk to us about that, as well as issues related to tourism, is Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Edmund Bartlett. We thank you for your company. Minister, good to have you on the program.
Thank you very much, Ian.
It's
always good to be on your program.
Thank you so much, Minister. Minister, give us a background to this conference and tell us why it is so important to Jamaica.
Well, this year is being observed as the International Year of Sustainable Tourism for Development, and it's being managed by the specialist arm of the United Nations, which is the UNWTO. And that's the arm responsible for promoting global tourism. So this year, the concentration has been on sustainability issues, and particularly how do we make tourism be more impactful in the economies of countries that are recipients of visitors across the world. The fact is that tourism has become the fastest growing economic activity globally, and it currently employs 293 million people and represents 10% of global GDP. That statistic also indicates that 1 in 10 workers of the world are employed in tourism, directly or indirectly. But more importantly, it generates $7.6 trillion across the world. And last year alone, 1.2 billion people traversed the different parts of the world and spent $1.3 trillion in pursuit of experiences. 79 countries are now having tourism dependence of 10% and more. 79 countries. And of those, the top 13 in the world are in the Caribbean. So the Caribbean is the most tourism dependent region on Earth. We have average dependence on of GDP of 41%.
That's high.
And in some countries, like Antigua and so on, and even smaller countries like St. Bart's and Anguilla and St. Martin and so on, have dependence of up to 90%. So a conference in the frame of how do we sustain economic growth, create jobs, and have inclusion in all of this process is vital in a year like this. And placed in a region that is the most tourism dependent on Earth is of significance. So this conference brings together a partnership of all the key players and main contributors to the development of tourism globally. The UNWTO, the government of Jamaica, the World Bank Group, of course, and the IDB. So what we have in addition to those key partners are some collaborators the OAS, the CHTA, the CTO, the World Travel and Tourism Council, which is the main private sector arm of global tourism,
Yes.
as well as George Washington University, and the UII, which represents the academia. And then for the NGO side, Chemonics out of Washington. So this constellation of institutional arrangement is the most potent and powerful that you could ever assemble in any one place.
And tourism ministers will be at the conference
And
also?
tourism ministers from 157 countries are expected to be here. So far, over 60 countries have registered, and more than 300 delegates have already registered. And we have just under 4 weeks to go.
Will there be a special emphasis, Minister, on the small and medium-sized enterprises in the tourism industry? And has this been a particular focus of yours?
Well, it really has been. And I think that to understand, therefore, what the content of the conference is to recognize that tourism with that potential for economic growth and to be a driver of job creation has to look at the element that is most affected. And the element that's most affected is the small and medium entities. The fact is that 80% of global tourism is the small and medium entities.
80%?
80%, right? But there is a asymmetry here because the flow of resources is in the reverse. It is 80% that goes to the 20%. And less than 20%, in fact, that goes to the 80%. So this conference is going to discuss that. We're going to look at how do we create a balance here? How do we do some rebalancing and create greater symmetries? And why we need to do that is that if tourism is to be an agent of poverty alleviation and is to transform the economic fortunes of the recipient countries, then we have to look carefully at those who are at the center of it, and it is the small and medium. But who are the people who enable these small and medium entities to grow, to thrive, and to be creative? It is the financial institutions. It is the multilateral financial partners, and that's the significance of bringing them to the table.
World Bank, IDB.
That's correct. So we are now going to have a discussion of how do we make the creative ideas have potency by allocating resources for the conversion. Because the creative products only come when you can convert the ideas into material value with, at a price, then the economy begins to move. So we bring the universities together for ideas.
Yes.
We bring the policymakers, the politicians,
Yes.
and the UNWTO.
Those who can implement.
Those who can frame policy that determine the framework within which these things can happen. And then we bring the NGOs, who are a key part of the civil society and to enable community development and activity. And they bring with that now the banks, who have the resources, the money to do it. So it's a perfect mix. And out of all of these discussions will come a frame that will help to guide the future development of tourism in the world.
So this conference can have a major impact on Jamaica and other countries of similar size in terms of those policies coming out of the multilateral institutions.
Yes.
Having a positive impact. Let's follow up on that when we come back from the break, Minister. Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Edmund Bartlett, talking about the upcoming UN World Tourism Organization's global conference that will be near the end of this month, a conference that will have an impact on Jamaica. We take a break, but we'll be right back.
Let's get a little breeze on this land. All right. Now let's get some bounce in the rhythm. All right. Let's get some fire on our hearts. Now that is what we call all right. Run, come, get some Jamaica.
between November 27th and the 29th, there will be an important conference, the United Nations World Tourism Organization's global conference in Jamaica, dealing with critical issues that will have an impact on Jamaica. The Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Edmund Bartlett, is our guest. So yes, Minister, there's this focus on the small and medium, I think you have a phrase, small and medium tourist enterprises, and there'll be that focus at this conference.
Yes, actually, and I think Jamaica has something to brag about and to tell the world, because it really has been our focus. And in my presidency or chairmanship of the affiliates of the UNWTO, we have been championing and pushing this. And this one of the reasons the conference is in Jamaica is that we have literally coined the phrase of the SMTE. SMTE. Yes, and we put a big green on the T, not because of any other reasons, but simply because it is a reflection of growth. And we're saying that if tourism is to thrive, the element that is underpinning its growth must be dealt with and must be given greater priority and has to be funded better. Because we discovered that last year, less than 1% of the total funding from multilaterals globally went into tourism and for the small and medium enterprises. So we have to create some... reverse that. Absolutely. And so this is one of the reasons why people like Chemonics are brought into the picture, because they are an NGO that does implementation on behalf of the multilateral donor countries, USAID and so on and so forth. We also have the Japanese investment group that is going to be here.
Oh, they will be?
Yes, they will be here. The IIC will be here. The IFC will be here. And at the level of the president and vice presidents. So we are not talking about getting just regular members of these institutions. Very high level
World
persons.
Bank, IDB.
Absolutely.
USAID will be here.
Will be here. The OAS Secretary General will be here.
Himself will be here.
In addition, we're going to be having presidents and prime ministers and a whole range of ministers. But back to the issue of the small and medium enterprises, because that's the soul of tourism. The real experience, which is what the visitor travels the world to have, is provided by these. They are the owners of it. It is the people. When you come to Jamaica, it's not the all-inclusives that are driving. It's the little man who people gravitate towards.
The culture, yes.
And so what we want to do is to make those little people a greater beneficiary of the expenditure of the visitor.
So you want to increase the value added in the tourism industry. You want to increase the linkages between tourism and other sectors of the economy.
Absolutely. And this is where...
greater inclusiveness.
And if you recall, we established that structure immediately as I became minister. 20 months ago, we established 5 pillars of growth, which, if you recall, was new products, new markets, new partnerships, new investments, and the renewal of our human capital, right? Then we developed the 5 networks that will underpin these growth. One was gastronomy, the other was shopping, the other was health and wellness, then there's entertainment, sports, and music, and all the creative things, and then the final was knowledge. And knowledge entails meetings, conventions, exhibitions, and events such as this conference. So we are saying that within those 5 networks reside the passions of people, and people travel to fulfill their passions. So if we invest within those areas, then we will be building the reasons for people to travel. And they sleep somewhere. So they get hotel rooms that are, and they need to fly to get here or come by boat, so we have transportation. But the key of it all is to build out the experiential aspect of the product. And who owns the experience? The little people. And that is why we have done 2 other things. One, we established the Exim Bank program, which enabled a window to be opened for small and medium entities to have loans at 5%. If you
The
recall
conditions
me
won't be too
talking about
stringent, though, Minister.
5 by 5 by 5.
Yes.
So it's a minimum of 5 million up to 25 million at 5% repayable over 5 years. And so this also supported the already established small business program through the Jamaica National Building Society's Small Building Loan Bureau. And that has already been providing loan assistance to small transportation operators and small hotels. So we are building out that capacity in terms of the economic and the capital arrangements. The second element of it now was the human capital side. And later this evening, I am launching the Jamaica Center for Tourism Innovation in Montego Bay, which is the pathway institution which we discussed on one of your programs for professionalism in the industry. So as to build out the sous chefs and those middle levels up into the higher levels. So people who graduate from university with a first degree can come to this institution, much like the Norman Manley School, yes, and become certified in various areas of the industry so they can help to replace the number of foreign professionals who come into the industry. And then the third aspect of it is the development of the Craft Development Institute, which is now to train our artisans to broaden their range and their scope of productive output, so they could give us a broader variety of indigenous Jamaican craft.
They can spend more.
So they can spend more, and when they come here, their visit is authenticated because they have a real Jamaican product, not made in China or made in Singapore or wherever, but made in Jamaica. So in this way, when you tie that now to agriculture and manufacturing, because agriculture and manufacturing represents what we call the indirect tourism impact. And then the induced are those other items that I mentioned. And so tourism consists of the direct flows, that is from the hotels and the marketing, and then the indirect from your linkages with agriculture and manufacturing, and then you're induced from the services that are provided and the experiences from the little people all across Jamaica.
Minister, I'm out of time, but we can't leave without talking about the latest figures to do with tourism growth. The sector has been doing well, both in terms of investments and earnings. What's the latest figures saying?
Well, we're doing very well, if I'm allowed to say so. This quarter that has just ended is a record quarter for tourism for all times. We are averaging 12% growth for that quarter, which will be reflected, I'm sure, in the GDP growth figures that will come out this period. But the earnings have equally been high. We're over 8% growth in earnings, which is significant. But the third quarter for our fiscal year, and the final quarter for the calendar year, we've started October at a record 20% growth, which is the highest growth we have had for any month ever. And November is shaping up to be a very powerful month. And December, of course, is usually a very strong one. So this quarter is going to be another major quarter. So we're looking at closing the year at somewhere in the region of 4 to 4.2 million visitors, which would be the first time that we'll be breaking the 4 million barrier of visitors, cruise and stopover. And the earnings will be closing in on 3 billion.
3 billion?
We'll be closing in. I expect somewhere in the region of 2.89 to 2.9, and with a little luck, we may make the 3 billion. If we do, we would have attained a landmark and a milestone that will begin to show the true impact of tourism, because at a retention rate of 30%, we would have $1 billion US in circulation from tourism, which would be part of where we want to be. Remember, my objective is 5 by 5 by 5. We want to get 5 million visitors and $5 billion US earning. So if we make the 3 this year, we have 2 to go.
Thank you very much, Minister of Tourism.
But before I go, I really want to invite Jamaicans to the conference. Because it is open to the world.
Rose Hall?
On the 27th to the 29th at the Convention Center in Montego Bay. And you can register as, to attend the conference by just going to the UNWTO website and register. It's free, and we're going to be there. Elements of it which we have not talked about, which we will hope to get another program to talk about, are going to also be made available in the media over the next few weeks.
Thanks very much, Minister. Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Edmund Bartlett, on Issues and Answers. Next week I'll be back. Until then, Ian Boyne wishing you a pleasant day.
Protect Jamaica, plant your grass. Help us become more resilient to climate change impacts. Protect Jamaica, plant a tree. It improves the island's national biodiversity. Trees may be fruit, ornamental, or timber, but must be native or suitable to the area's natural landscape. Join the Jamaica Million Tree Campaign and help to plant 1 million trees by June 30, 2019. This is a call to action by the National Environment and Planning Agency.
Geographic Information System, GIS, is a computer system for capturing, storing, checking and displaying data related to positions on Earth's surface. This next feature highlights ways in which GIS technology has been revolutionizing national development.
Imagine a Jamaica where its people are empowered to achieve their fullest potential. A Jamaican society that is secure, cohesive and just, with a prosperous economy and a healthy natural environment. With the integration of geographic information systems, Jamaica can realize those goals. GIS technology is one of the tools the island is using as it positions itself for first world status in the digital age. Geographic information systems are used in various sectors, from water, land, transport, health, education, agriculture, insurance, as well as environment and disaster management.
The Road Safety Unit is unique in that we use GIS technology to ascertain trend, spatial characteristics and distribution of accidents as well as fatalities. Because when we put out a report, we try to give factual, and GIS help us in a way that we can show a graphical representation of what is the actual trend.
We use the platform to provide solutions to our client, whether they're from the government or private sector. We provide solutions to make their organization more productive, more efficient, and also to help them to create an environment for sharing and collaboration throughout the organization.
GIS facilitates us being able to map the location of features. So it is place-based, it's location-based, and anything that we think about with regards to society is located somewhere in the island, whether it's human-related or physical, and this can be mapped, it can be monitored, it can be managed effectively with a view to ensuring that we're able to facilitate development.
And now GIS technology is also being used to address national security and public safety challenges.
What will bring success is an increase in public trust, a partnership with our communities, respect for people's rights, less corruption, stemming the flow of our youth into gangs, the use of technology, a calm and informed citizenry, and strong leadership.
By incorporating traditional law enforcement data with information such as demographics, infrastructure, and offender tracking, Jamaica can use GIS to transform information into actionable intelligence. Geospatial tools offer the capability of monitoring, predicting, and countering threats, while helping to strategize and support field operations. The use of advanced spatial analytical tools and advanced imaging technologies enable the continuous flow of data between intelligence, law enforcement agencies, and security companies in pre, real-time, and post-operations. Through its secretariat, the National Spatial Data Management Division, the LICJ spearheads Jamaica's implementation of a GIS network across the island. And every year in November, the LICJ promotes the technology through GIS Day and Geography Awareness Week. This year's focus will showcase GIS technology as a crime-fighting tool under the theme Geospatial Technologies, Mapping Our Way to Secure Communities. The 25th anniversary of the LICJ will also be celebrated in November. As part of those celebrations, the Council will host the inaugural GIS User Conference on October 10 and 11, 2017 at the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel in Kingston.
It will be a platform to facilitate networking among policymakers, leaders, and other members of society to ensure that best practices can be discussed and employed to ensure that our varied strategic objectives and mandates are met.
It is very useful, so we're hoping that the user conference helps to promote and push GIS in this country.
We want to bring GIS to the fore for not just our GIS community, but for persons outside of that community to be aware of this platform and its capabilities.
We welcome everyone, students, persons from government, private sector, the public at large, to come out to the various events that we have in store for you.
Learn more about the GIS User Conference by visiting gisuserconferenceja.com.
Mommy?
Yes, Zoe?
Can we read this book? It will only take 10 minutes.
Sure, sit down. Every spring, Madame Angel Wing arranges.
Do you have 10 minutes? Read with your child today. Reading with your children for just 10 minutes each day helps develop their language and listening skills, stimulates their imagination, and expands their understanding of the world. So, start reading with your child today.
When persons visit your social media pages, do they reflect who you say you are as a person? Have you ever really given thought to how the things you post or share on your pages will impact your future? Well, here's a thoughtful reminder.
Anything you share on social media, you should be willing to go in the public square and shout it out loud, because that is what you are doing.
In other words, if you have to hide your posts from your parents and potential employers or even school administration, you should not post it. This is becoming a constant issue that the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information is trying to curb. And they're calling on the help of parents to do so. Parents, in case you didn't know, this is what's happening.
Our children are oversharing on social media. They're sharing quite too much information. In fact, they are negatively impacting their future because of what they share on social media. Social media has given us a false sense of security. In fact, it has convinced our children that it is a private space. We need to remove that fallacy from the minds of our children. Nothing you do on social media is private. No matter if, like Snapchat, it disappears after you send the message. No matter if your story only lasts for 24 hours, it never goes away.
Children, social media can positively and negatively impact your future. Be careful of what you post, and let's make Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business online and in life. I hope you found our program informative. Send your feedback to jamaicamagazine@gis.gov.jm. Stay informed on our social media pages, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, or download our app on your Apple and Android devices to catch up on the go. You can also visit our website, jis.gov.jm, for more information. On behalf of the entire production crew, I am Adrian Atkinson. Thanks for watching.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.